in a coffee shop in a city, which is every coffee shop in every city on a day, which is every day. Hello, friends, and welcome to the 31st episode of Barista Unfiltered, a podcast dedicated to the life and times of baristas. They tell us what's brewing in their lives and work in this free-flowing and unfiltered podcast. I'm Jody Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
And we're thrilled that you've joined us again. We're your hosts, and today our guest is Taylor Dobmeyer.
Hey, how's it going?
He's awesome. He is a barista of the nighttime at a brewery in Lafayette, Colorado. He's a super friendly dude, and he has promised us there's nothing that we can say to offend him. He says there are no alleys too dark for discussion.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, so this is going to be a wild ride. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. All right. First thing we always want to know from our guests is what kind of coffee did you have this morning?
I actually went to Otis this morning and had their house blend. It was black and very good. It's very good. So yeah, I typically try to have Otis a couple times a week. It's my favorite spot to go. So. Yeah.
And that is where we met.
Yeah, that is.
A few memorable weeks ago.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So can I tell a little bit about that story?
Absolutely.
Or would you like to tell it? Why don't you?
I would love to hear
You want to hear?
Section of this. So yeah, I'll fill in the details here.
Okay. So a lot of you might remember Victor Hugo Lemus. He was on our podcast a long time ago. I came in and Victor and Hannah, I think, were both working that morning. We can't get Hannah on the show. She's elusive. She's more elusive than Molly Bush. Anyway, so Victor was bright-eyed and super excited, and I was like, "How's your morning?" He goes, "Oh my God, I still have adrenaline coursing through my body. I just got on a one wheel." And I said, "A what? A one wheel? I want to be on a one wheel." And he goes, "Well, my friend Taylor over there has one." I was like, "Do you think he would let me ride on it?" And Victor said, "Of course. I mean, I'll go introduce you to him."
Yeah.
And then Hannah comes up and she's like, "I just got on it too." And I went flying. It was amazing. So, I mean, I was a little bit nervous, but at the same time, I have been wanting to get on a one wheel for, I mean, at least a year, maybe 2 years. Yeah. And if you don't know what a one wheel is, it's like a really fat tire with a skateboard around it. And it functions a lot like a snowboard, like for the street. So you can ride the nose and the tail of it, and you can lean forward and back on it. So they look so cool. Have you seen one, Austin?
Yeah, I see people commuting in San Francisco on those things, and I mean, I have looked at it and wondered, like, how do people stay on that thing? I can't really, they usually go by pretty quick, so you don't have like a lot of time to sit there and try to figure it out. But
so that's how Taylor and I met. So Victor takes me over to Taylor and goes, "Taylor is my friend Jody. Jody, this is Taylor." And before I know it, he's got the one wheel in his hand. He's headed out the door. And I was like, "Oh, wait, I got to get at my helmet and my wrist guards." Because, I always have those with me because I rollerblade. And I was like, "Just 1 minute. Let me go get safe." And then he taught me how to get on that one wheel. And we just walked back inside and became best friends.
Yeah.
That's my perception.
Yeah, no, it was great. I was just kind of.
And how did you do, Jody? Did you
great?
Really well.
Unlike those 20-somethings at Otis, like I'm a little more careful because
Yeah, you had the stability down right away. It was good. Yeah.
I've been hurt before, so I know not to like go crazy with it. But Taylor took me over to this, like it was like a bike where you would park your bike, like one of those big metal stands that kind of is at waist height. So I could hold on to that and then get on the one wheel and just kind of get my balance before I started doing all the leaning. If you lean in one direction, it just moves that way. Yeah. If you lean in another direction, it moves that way. So it's really fun. It's kind of like riding a motorcycle.
It has a gyroscope?
Yeah, it's the same technology as they used in the Segways, basically. So it's that idea of it just tries to kind of balance under you. So as your center of gravity moves one way or the other, it will compensate and try to move under you. So it's mostly based on, just kind of your balance in that sense. But yeah, I've been doing it for probably about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm on my second one, and I'm kind of that guy that everybody knows is the one wheel guy in my circle of friends. So I love it. It's just one of those things that it's probably not practical for everybody, but for specific people that really like that type of thing, it's like, it's kind of like my Back to the Future thing. Like someday I want the hoverboard, but this is going to out, and it's great. Yeah, I love it.
And if you're not a practical person, it's perfect for you.
Yes, it is absolutely an impractical thing at times, but it's a lot of fun, and I can't be big enough at this. So.
Actually, here in the Castro, there's a guy that rides around, and he's kind of like the modern version of the 70s roller girl. He's really like buffed up, and he's actually a dancer at one of the local bars, and he brings like a radio blaster with him and rides around the Castro on that thing with this shirt off. It's pretty cool.
That person knows the one wheel, I feel like. Very cool.
Maybe he'll let you borrow it, Austin. You really should try one.
Yeah, it's great. It's worth trying.
Yeah. Yeah, the next time I see him, I'm going to ask him if he'll let me jump on.
Great. Yeah, most people that I know that have one wheels are more than happy to let you try it out. It's one of the fun things of owning a one wheel. It's definitely
and it's one of those things. I think it's such a Back to the Future kind of looking thing that you couldn't do it and not get stopped. Like people are probably gonna talk to you.
Everybody wants to talk to you and see what it's about. And it doesn't make sense really as far as how it works. So I think everyone's kind of confused about, well, is there a motor in it? Is it electric? And it's very quiet too. So you kind of sneak by people sometimes. They see it zipping down the road, and it's like, what is that?
That was the future. Just passing you by.
I hope in 5 to 10 years it's a much more prevalent thing. Because I already see. People doing like meetups on Reddit and things like that, and everyone meeting up their boards and going on a ride together. So it's becoming more of a culture thing, I think. So I see a future in it for sure.
And it has a fat tire. It's not just for streets. You can take it off road.
Yeah.
Really?
Track,
and gravel,
and even grass, gravel, all these things. It's a little less stable, but it absolutely can handle almost anything you throw at it. So very versatile, very very useful.
And he's taking it out on dirt trails. So he's living proof it really does work.
Yep, it does. It's great for that. So
how much does the thing weigh? Like if you pick it up, how much does it weigh?
It's about 30 pounds, I think 27 pounds.
Not bad.
So they have a couple different versions of it, a smaller one and then a larger one with longer range and just kind of a beefier build. So I love it. It's great. Like I said, I tell people it's absolutely worth the money. It's something if you get one, you'll be obsessed. And I ride it every day. I already rode it this morning. It's just one of those things that it's become a very real part of my life. So it's great. It's a lot of fun.
And do you ride it without a helmet?
So I'm gonna say this. I do have a helmet, but I am that guy that I do like to listen to music at times when I do it. And if I'm not out doing what I consider to be really dangerous riding, I sometimes don't wear a helmet. There are people that if you ride a lot more gravel and dirt and inclines and things like that, the propensity to fall is very real. So with that being said, anyone watching this, please wear a helmet. It is the intelligent thing to do. I know there's always going to be this cross-section society that neglects safety, but it is something that I have fallen off in the past. And with any new technology like this that propels your body through space and time at that rate, it's important to have a healthy respect for these types of things. So as with anything, biking, skateboarding, safety is a priority. But yes, I know I should be better about that.
That was a great disclaimer. You won't get sued.
To let people know, hey, don't use me as a barometer for that. One guy doesn't wear a helmet, so it's like, please wear a helmet. It's the smarter thing to do.
I want one so bad. I've wanted one for like a year, and now they've come out with this new version of it. So they have like the big one, like Taylor has, and then they have a smaller version called the Pint, which is a little bit slower, a little bit less of a battery life, but it's like $600 cheaper. So the main one wheel is like $1,500.
Yeah, this newer version is about $1,800.
And then the Pint is like $900. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say the Pint is great. Mm-hmm. Like and even Taylor said that's a great starter one wheel. Like there's really no reason to buy the big one unless you're gonna.
Well, and I would say
want the range
if you're somebody that rides for example, I ride it wide open most of the time, so I'm very comfortable at the top speed. It goes about 19, 20 miles an hour. For most people, that's super uncomfortable right out of the gate. So having a smaller, more nimble board with a little more control, but it doesn't go as fast. I think the tops out at like 15 miles an hour. It's for a lot of people starting out, that's a better way to go. I know people that have gotten, I actually had a guy try my one wheel and he broke his wrist because he just fell off the front of it. And you know, one of these things I always tell people, like, hey, like, you know, if you're going to jump on this, be aware that you may fall off. Like, it is dangerous. So there is a level of easing into something like this. If you don't have a background in board sports, you don't have really good balance, you know, it needs respect. It's one of those things that, like, falling off something that close to the ground without anything, you know, holding you in, it can definitely buck you off. So
there are consequences.
There are. And with anything, really, I consider it a high risk, high reward activity. It is. It's just one of those things you're in for it if you fall, but it's so much fun. And like I said, I use it every day. And at this age, people are always like, "So you ride that thing every day?" I'm like, "It's like snowboarding on concrete. If you like to snowboard, like, you know, you got to go all the way out to the mountains, and then you can only spend so much time. Where this is getting that experience every single day. It's you can almost not put a price on that. So I look at it as it's a real part of my life. I love it. I want more people to get into it, so there's more of a culture and even more of a acceptance of things like this. So I see a huge future in not gas-based transportation. So stuff like this is gonna get bigger, faster, cheaper. All these things are gonna happen in the future. So you'll see a lot more of this stuff, I'm hoping.
Until then, we'll just admire you.
Yeah, well, anyone that wants to try it, I'm more than happy to see me out in Lafayette or something. Please offer.
Oh, definitely stop him. It's worth the conversation alone. So I should probably tell everybody who's listening that you're not actually a barista, right? But you are a beerista. That's what I'm calling it.
I like that.
So what you do have for sure is the gift of gab and a most friendly way about you, which is delightful. And they're already hearing that. We're going to get to bartending details first, but we got to talk about your life with coffee. When did you start drinking coffee?
So I started drinking coffee daily when I was about 17 or 18 years old. And it was one of these things that I grew up in a household where my dad is a real coffee guy. He loves his coffee. He does the whole cold brew thing at home. I mean, he's always been into it. And so I grew up in a household where the adults drank black coffee. And as a young person, I never really had a taste for it. But it seemed like there was just one day where I had a whole cup of it and it just clicked. It was like that. Like, it tasted good. It did what I wanted caffeine-wise and all these things. And then I never looked back. And since about 17 or 18, I've been drinking black coffee every day. So I don't put creamer or sugar in it. I feel like that is kind of a
wimpy.
Wimpy. I mean, as anything else, I do enjoy the caffeine kick in the morning. It's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think it's a great drug in that sense. And there's something about a cup of black coffee in the morning that just, there's nothing like it. So yeah, it's been about since
so a while.
18-year-olds. Yeah,
it's funny that we're getting to a place where there's second generation coffee geeks now, because usually when people tell the story, they're like, yeah, my mom and dad had Maxwell House at home every day, or but you're talking about your dad at home doing cold brew and that kind of thing. I think coffee culture has progressed for so long now that even our parents are coffee geeks.
Oh yeah, and I love it because it's great to be able to go home and my dad's like, oh, we'll try this out, And my dad's somebody that drinks really, really strong coffee, so I feel like I'll go home and have a couple cups of his coffee and just be shaking. I have a little more of a less of a caffeine tolerance, I feel like. So it is funny to see how people's different, habits with coffee kind of shape their perception. And, he's one of those guys who'll drink a pot of coffee a day or whatever it is. So, I've always liked it. It's been a part of my family for a long time. And it's just something that I enjoy, going to coffee shops and trying new coffee and hanging out with people. And just, it's a great social thing in my mind. So there's
some of the ways that we do coffee is actually genetic. Like, I took a 23andMe test, and how you metabolize coffee partially is genetic. If you're like a fast metabolizer of it, I think then you can handle more. If you happen to get the gene where you're like a slow metabolizer, then you might like your coffee weaker. So that's partially, even though it's from your dad, you might not have gotten that. So it's kind of strange that is actually like in your DNA.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising because I feel like I'm definitely like, everyone talks about, you live long enough till you turn into your parents. And when that starts happening, you start to see these kind of habits and these genetic things kind of express themselves. So it is an interesting thing. Absolutely.
So Austin, were there any other surprises in your genetic testing?
There was one thing that was a falsehood. And I was expecting they test you for what's called the Achu syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Or the photic sneeze reflex, which is if you walk outside and it's really sunny, you sneeze. Have you known people that do that?
I do have a friend who does that.
I always do that. I sneeze like seriously, like as soon as I'm like, say I'm in a dark movie theater and then I walk out into the parking lot, I will sneeze like usually like 5 times. But it said that I am not likely to have that.
Oh.
So I don't know if that was like, I don't know what that was because I have it pretty strong actually. Do you guys do that?
I don't.
I don't think I do.
I've been around people who do.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot, but lights.
It is actually called the Achu syndrome, and you can look it up on Wikipedia. It is.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Did your whole family do the tests, or just you?
I'm trying to. I think I'm the only one. I think I'm the only one.
What motivated you?
I had a bunch of friends that were doing it, and it was World DNA Day, which meant they were free that day.
Oh, you're just at a DNA party?
Yeah, so it's like April 25th or something like that, World DNA Day. So I did it. And that was back before we were like, that was in like 2008 or 2009 before we like started mistrusting all these sites. So I didn't even think twice about it. These days I might think twice about like what company I turned all that information over to. But at that time it was just like, yeah, sure. Put everything up on Facebook. Give everything to 23andMe. Sure, why not? You know.
Things were a little softer 10 years ago.
We were a little more optimistic, yeah.
I think we all say that, right? We're just getting more jaded with every decade.
Yeah.
Let's see. So tell me about your work as a beerista. Like, where are you bartending, and tell me about that.
So I work at a brewery in Gun Barrel, which is
Gun Barrel,
kind of a north neighborhood of Boulder, actually, and it's called Finkel and Garth Brewing Company.
What?
Yeah.
We've been up there for their open mic.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Their comedy stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I go to the comedy every Wednesday of the month there.
Okay.
During the year. So
yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been there for about 2 years. It's been the job I've had since I've been living in Colorado, and it's a fun, small group of people. It's run by a guy and his dad and his brother, actually. So it's kind of a family-run business. But it's got that very startup feel to it. I like it a lot because it isn't so corporate and isn't so oppressive in a lot of ways. You're allowed to dress the way you want, appear the way you want. We're valued as people a lot more, I feel like, and it's easier to have a little more of a genuine experience. I feel like when you feel valued at a place and you feel like you have a little more input versus some of these other places where it seems to be a little more you're just a piece of the machine necessarily. So yeah, Finkel and Garth's great. I like it there a lot. So. And
you're working there every evening or certain evenings?
I work there about 4 or 5 days a week, depending. But yeah, mostly I have most Mondays and Tuesdays off. So I work pretty classic bartender hours, like 2 p.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. depending on when we're open. And it's great. I like it a lot. So
what are your favorite beers there?
My favorite beers would probably be, we've done different runs of hazier IPAs, New England styles, things like that. We have a Norwegian IPA that's really good. Typical regular West Coast IPA, really good. But it is a craft beer place. We have a little bit of everything there, I feel like. And in Boulder County, there's so many craft breweries that people's perception of craft beer here versus anywhere else is very different in my mind. We have a lot of people that come from out of town are just very surprised that, like, oh, you make all the beer here, and oh, these are all your beers. Like, there's this perception that everywhere that serves beer is just everyone else's beer. It's like a tap house or something. Where we are a full scale brewery that has a tap room attached to it. So most of the business we do is selling beer in liquor stores and things like that, and producing beer for places. But we do have a standalone tap room that does very well, and we have a lot of people in and out. We have a really good local crowd in the area. So I would say the tap room culture is the bar culture for many other areas of the country. When you think about going down to your corner bar, wherever you hang out, things like that, that is what the brewery culture is to Colorado in my mind, and specifically Boulder County. So it is very much a bartending job in that sense. So,
are you interested in brewing?
I don't have as much interest in the back of house stuff. I did a lot of production for quite a while when I started there. So I did a lot of canning beer. So I do know the ins and outs of producing beer and, kind of what it takes. But there is a love for science you have to be a brewer. I mean, what they do back there is very sensitive and very, there's a lot of reactivity to things. So, this idea of like home brewing, there is a simplicity to what people do in home brewing, and it is approachable from that angle. But when you blow it up to the size we're doing, everything is done with fire hoses and giant tanks, and there's a lot of things that are that need your full attention at all times. So I admire the brewers and what they do, but I myself am not as mechanically minded in that sense, and I don't feel like I enjoy that type of work as much. Where
so you're more like a people person. You like the interaction with the customers, and
yes, yeah, I would say that is something that my gifts are more so in the interpersonal communications department versus the hands-on application of producing beer in that sense. But they all do a very good job. They're all really nice guys, and it is truly something that it's always a learning experience. Everyone is always adjusting and learning and making mistakes. And craft beer is, in essence, a very, do-it-yourself startup thing. So, when there is no rule book for us, there's just trial and error. We make tons of beers. If one beer is not good, we don't make it again. If one beer that we made one time is great, we get a great reception from it, we might just make that a permanent thing. So, we have a lot of rotating beers on tap. We do have a core list of beers too that we always produce that you can always find in stores. But being a small operation like we are self-distributed. We are very small. We're only in the Front Range, so we don't have this national reach that a lot of these other places do. And with that being said, you do control a lot of the quality in things, and you're able to adjust things more to your group of people that you're producing for. So, you look at places, maybe even like, Avery, for as an example, that they're in gun barrel as well, but they're big, they're national now. And they've almost deviated from what people would call craft beer because of the size of their operation now and just the reach. So it is something, I see the culture supports what we do and the size we are. I don't think this, exponential growth is necessarily something we are shooting for all the time, because at the end of the day, like, producing local craft beer for local people is that's what we're here to do. And that's what we do well. And I think that you lose a little bit of that every time you blow yourself up to that size and start to try to, well, how do we get this to, the East Coast, or how, if the beer can't get to you in a day in a single van by one of our two drivers, we don't get it.
It's not happening.
So it is.
It's the same way in coffee as well. It's like, once you export out of the community that you serve, you lose a little bit of that specialness of serving that community, getting energy from that community, giving back to that community. You lose that intimate knowledge of the people that you're serving, and so I don't know. I like a place that reflects the community that's around it, and is unique in that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you have to go to it to experience it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There is some beauty in that. So tell me about what you like about your job, and tell me about that community there, because I don't drink beer. I don't know anything about bar culture really, except like what I saw on Cheers. And you know how on that show Cheers, Norm would come in every day and be like, Norm, everybody go Norm, because everybody knows him. Like, do you have a Norm?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I probably have, a handful of people I consider to be regulars that I see almost on a daily basis. And for like what I see with bars in general and beer culture and things like that, a lot of the times it's not about alcohol. It's not about, the drug experience necessarily. It's about the community aspect of a tap room or a place. And especially, like people like the norm, I would consider, somebody that is, looking for a social interaction, looking for a place to hang out, to call their own. And I feel like there's something special about being a regular somewhere where you feel really comfortable with the staff. You walk in, everybody knows your name. They put your drink in front of you. Like there's something special about that. And I've been a regular at coffee shops and bars in the past and different places I lived in. When you cultivate that, you become part of that. And we even had it where, like, if we don't see somebody for a couple of days, you might call them and be like, hey, is everything okay? Like, we haven't seen you in a while. Like, it is a community thing. And it is, for a lot of people, a family situation. Like, if you don't have a family or something like that, or you just moved somewhere, a great way to make friends is go to a bar and make yourself known and hang out there. And it's part of putting yourself out there in my mind. So, I love serving people that I know and that are regulars. These are people I have very honest conversations with on a daily basis. They know the ins and outs of my life. And, I've had a lot of situations where, something really terrible happens to somebody and they come in and you are their support, or, the people in that bar are their support. And I've seen some of the most real and genuine moments in people's lives in that tap room, in that bar I worked at, in that coffee shop, because a lot of times people, they let their guard down when they feel safe somewhere. They don't feel like they're at the grocery store and they have to have those blinders on and they can't be honest. And I mean, every time as a bartender, you give someone a hug and say, hey, it's going to be okay. Like this is not the end of the world. Like that's really what makes my job special to me. It's not about serving beer. It's not about, making money even in that sense. I just get gratification from the idea that there's a real connection going on between me and somebody else. And you as a bartender, you cultivate that. Like people know they're going to see you at a specific place. So part of that is them coming back to see you. And that, and I'm very fortunate to work with a couple other individuals that are amazing people that do a great job that, collectively we create that space for people to come in and say, hey, I had a really good time at Finkel and Garth, and I want to come back because it's cool here and I feel accepted, and there's not this edge. And I mean, I've been places where you walk in and the bartenders are unpleasant or whatever it is, and it's not fun. You don't go back. So you start to see, it's more than the beer. It's more than, any of that stuff. It comes down to, community and interaction and facilitating that interaction in a way that's meaningful to people. So that's kind of, for me, that's the regular culture. That's why people are regulars places, is because they have friends there.
Any business. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Any business where you're interacting with another human being.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. You find that's true, Austin, that people come in?
Especially somewhere where you have choices. Like you could be going somewhere else, but you choose to go to this, it's not out of necessity. It's like you choose to go there and it's because you feel a special draw, or especially at home at that place.
And it's good to make people feel comfortable. And I think that's something in today's society. There is such an edge to people in a way where, there is this separation that people perceive. And even just going out in public, like it takes a lot of, gumption to go into a new place and make yourself comfortable and make yourself established. But, if the staff right over the gate is like, hey, yeah, can I help you? You have that one conversation that was meaningful, like they're likely to come back. And, I'm one of these people that I make friends with some of the people I serve, and I will hang out with them outside of work. And that's, for me, that's how you build relationships. And that's how you, like I said, you just make that connection with people. So like, as a bartender, I've been doing this for a while now. It's something that I value my ability to make people feel comfortable and to, make that connection on their level or wherever they're at, or if they're having a tough time or something. Like you can tell as a bartender, someone that sits in front of you at a rail, I mean, you see them, you see what they're doing. And, and with people drinking too, there's something, sometimes people are trying to escape from something. Sometimes people are trying to have fun. Sometimes people are, just in general, just looking for something to do. There's that idea of, well, I'm bored. What do you want to do? Should we go grab a beer somewhere? Like, that is a very real thing.
It kind of sounds like you're you're the therapist behind the bar, and you're just tracking like their energy for what do you need from me.
Well, absolutely. And I think too is like I oftentimes get a more honest interaction than a therapist would get, just given the circumstances. I mean, a lot of people have trouble opening up to professionals because of judgment. They feel like there's going to be some sort of, every time someone's writing something on a pad as you're walking, like, what are you writing? Is this good or bad? Like, judgment. And I feel like if you can create social space, and especially like I find that if I, expose myself and make myself a little more vulnerable, they're more likely to open up to me in that sense. And the same thing is like I consider myself someone that doesn't have anything to hide because I don't feel like there's any reason to hide things because other people's judgment is not, not what I focus on. And I think the more open I am and the more I put out into that, the more I get back from it. So it's a matter of how you present yourself and how you bring yourself to that event. So
we're taking the unfiltered nature of our podcast like to a whole new level today.
That's right.
Yeah, like this is truly unfiltered. So Taylor, I know human connection is deeply important to you. Yeah. Is that something new for you? Have you always been that way? Like, where'd that come from?
I was very fortunate to grow up with two very intelligent, open, loving parents that, I would say just my background, where I come from, I've always been a very easygoing, easy to get along with person, probably to a fault even. So I would say that, yeah, it's just something that I've always valued my relationships and even interaction with strangers as an important part of existence, because it's the same thing. It's you can value those things, or you can value more material things, or progress in life in that sense. And I've never been somebody that thinks that we should put others down in that sense in favor of progress in life with money or tangible goods, or elevating oneself over others to serve their ego. That is something that I view as, it's just, again, you're not going to have as good of a life experience if you continuously only value yourself and only value what you can get from people. And this idea that, what can you do for me? That's such a faulty idea. And it's a sense that what can I do for you? And how can we make this interaction meaningful? So I've always kind of been like that. I think the way I live my life just kind of cultivates that naturally. But I'm also someone that I do, I pour beer for a living. I don't work in corporate America. I don't shave my face. I don't do all these things that, constitute probably a little more of that, path of, well, I'm going to be a Wall Street, big shot guy. So, like I'm very much the alternative to that. And I think that is something that, that makes my heart whole in that sense. And I can go to bed every night knowing that I have, true good intentions for people, and that, even if I am not perceived to be this ultra successful, individual with a nice car and all this stuff, it's the idea that at the end of the day, like that's not what would make me happy. Being me is what makes me happy. And other people telling me, hey, like, what you said really made a difference to me, or like, like, how do you live like this? Or like, whenever people are interested in my life, I always think the same thing. Is like, well, this is me just being genuine and true about this. And I've always kind of felt that way. I mean, I'm 29 now, so I mean, there has been a lot of, progress, I'd say, in the last 5-10 years or whatever it is. And, we all were younger at one time and made more mistakes and did worse things. But, I'm one of those people. I've lived a very flawed life in a lot of ways, but not the end result, but my current state of being is a reflection of the lessons I've learned and the interactions I've had with people. So, that's just the way I've always kind of lived, I guess, to answer that question.
Yeah. And I think when you have a life that is not business or medicine or, whatever else people think that is the straight path, you get a lot of pushback.
Absolutely.
From people.
Absolutely.
And Austin, have you ever experienced that pushback?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, I think for me, like where I am right now in the most expensive city in possibly the world, I think most of my pushback is financial at this point. But I feel like a lot of the people who have the attitude like you described of not necessarily like striving just for money, but like wanting to live in a community, wanting to represent that community, not really placing the highest value on how much money you're bringing home, is those people are kind of hanging on by their fingernails here a little bit. But there still is there's a strong community of people, and luckily I feel like I know a lot of really good people in San Francisco that are like that. But yeah, that would be my pushback here is mostly just trying to make it work.
I know Brian Harrelson's leaving San Francisco soon. That's
right.
super sad.
Yeah.
Super sad for the community. Um,
And there have been a lot of people who have left.
Yeah. Are you kind of thinking in that way, or?
I don't know. I'm not looking too far down the road. Like right now, I'm in an okay situation. I really like where I work. I really like what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And I, lucky enough to have like a rent control situation and some good friends here. But I would never rule it out. There may come a moment where I'm just like, you know what, it's time to. And I'm always open to new adventures, new chapters in life. So yeah, I could
I
say
just imagine
it could
you
happen
as
next
being,
year. It could happen in 6 months. Who knows?
I just imagine you as being a person at Spikes that for a lot of people in the community, you are that person, that touchstone, a face that's familiar over the
Yeah.
years. And a lot like what Taylor's describing, where people come in hoping to see you, hoping to interact with you, and taking a little piece of that Austin sunshine for the day.
Yeah,
You
and I
know?
feel I actually, and I imagine a lot of other people who are holding on here probably feel needed in one way or another, and I do feel needed in my job right now. So,
Yeah.
so that's part of what keeps me here.
Keeps you
Also, I
there.
mean, yeah, and I love the city. I still do. Um, but there could be a point where I get pulled in another direction. I would definitely like to be able to travel more.
Yeah.
That's um, but this is a good home base.
Yeah. You have a sweet situation
Yeah,
by a lot of standards.
yeah.
So I want to change gears here just a little bit because we've been talking about a couple different kinds of drugs. We've been talking about caffeine and we've been talking about um, alcohol. Those are drugs that are permitted in our culture, and those are drugs that a lot of us consume on a daily or weekly basis. There's also nicotine, which maybe we'll talk about nicotine addiction. But there are a wide range of drugs that are illegal substances, but that dramatically alter the lives of some people for the better. And in my very first conversation with Taylor, we got into that a little bit, and he's happy to share.
Yeah.
So I want him to talk about that a little bit and see where that takes us.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of psychedelics and especially different plant medicines. They are gaining traction rapidly, especially in your area. I know in the Denver area, they're becoming more decriminalized and accepted on another level. For me, they have been absolutely instrumental in opening my heart and mind in a very positive way. They have again, it's for me, it's an experience that's very difficult to explain to people that have not done it themselves.
Like me.
But it is something that I consider to be very worthwhile and does expose what I consider to be the magic in life. And we do lose track of that magic very easily because of the cultural conditioning we are all exposed to as young people, as adults, even to this present day. And I think there's an enormous movement currently towards acceptance of these drugs because of what they do on an interpersonal level. And a lot of people find that there's a great deal of healing that happens even after one significant psychedelic experience. And, the drugs that I would consider to be valuable are LSD, psilocybin, mescaline to that degree, ayahuasca, or, orally active DMT in that sense is becoming a very popular alternative for people that, again, are dealing with a lot of deep-seated issues that are not being dealt with. And a lot of people can say, oh, yeah, kids are running around taking psychedelics and dancing around. And I'm sure there is that use happening. And I'll be the first to tell you, I go to music festivals every year and consume these drugs and have a good time, of course. But there's an enormous amount of, exposure, I'd say, that happens to your subconscious more or less comes to the surface, and things that you didn't think were still a problem or didn't think you were repressing come up, and they're like, hey, I'm still here and you still haven't dealt with me. And I wouldn't even call it, we all like drugs of pleasure drugs like nicotine, alcohol, all these things that kind of feed this short-term pleasure model. So it's this idea of if you need to take a drug every day, that's a short-term payoff drug. But things like psilocybin and LSD, you may have one, large experience with them, and it can change your perception of your own life forever. And it's something that, for some people, they may not be ready for something like that, and they do alter perception in an incredible way. And I would be shortchanging them to call them, I even hate using the term drugs or recreational drugs, because it's so much more than recreation for me. And I've been using these substances off and on for a little over a decade now, and there's been nothing but positive, takeaways from these experiences.
When you embarked on that, did you just kind of do it on a lark, or were you prepared for what you were getting yourself into the first time you took a psychoactive substance?
My first psilocybin experience was when I was 19, and I had no concept of what psychedelics were or what they were bound to do. And I remember finding the experience to be titanically strange, in that sense that your perception is just so opened up. But I remember, after coming back down to reality and kind of putting myself back together, my appreciation for my own life and the beauty in life and my relationships, and it was just so magnified. And I remember, even being on campus a day after it happened, and I just remember looking at a tree, and it was like the first time I had ever seen a tree, and I could appreciate the entirety of the tree for what it was. And it was this idea that we live through these lives with blinders on a lot of the time, and you're not seeing the beauty, you're not seeing the magic, and you're not appreciating it, because conditioning has told you that all of this doesn't matter, that these are the things to focus on, that you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. So your perception of life gets skewed, and you start to look at everything as this like negative, life's out to get me. If I don't get money, if I don't have a car, if I don't get married, if I don't have kids, my life will be wasted. And it's this idea that, you're already perfect. You're already the person you need to be. And the more you express yourself as that true individual, the happier you're going to be, and the more satisfied you're going to be, and the less meaningless shit you just don't need that stuff to be happy. And these drugs do a really good job at magnifying that aspect of reality. And, I would say it's one of these things that, in higher doses, entheogens are ego dissolving in that sense. I mean, I've had a few of these larger scale experiences where, the sense of self is completely obliterated. So you understand that we are all the same, force. We're all the same part of life. Like this idea of, there's a difference between me and you and her, that there's not. We're all the same thing. It's just we're experiencing life as this single drop of a big ocean that will eventually all return to, that we've returned to many times. I was not religious at all for a long time. I was very stagnant in my view. I was turned off by organized religion and all these things. And psychedelics has brought back the spiritual side of my being into reality again. And I feel like going out into my everyday life and telling people those experiences and telling them there's nothing to be scared of. That if anything, the fear generated out of these experiences is your own mind and your own ego. Just telling you that it's scared, and everybody is scared, and living a life of fear and limited paradigms is not the way we were supposed to exist. So
right.
For me, it's about dissolving fear, it's about dissolving boundaries, it's about connecting with your higher self, with your spirit. It's about being the most true energetic expression of what you are. And it's your conscience. It's that little voice in your head telling you, this is wrong, this is right, this is what you should be doing. And so, a lot of my life is based on the idea that, I don't live to make money. I don't live to make other people money. I don't want to do things because other people think I should do it. I want to do things because I know deep down in my heart that's the right thing to do, and that's the way people should exist. And for me to sit back and not be a beacon of light for other people is me doing a disservice to myself and others. And psychedelics make that so clear to you that it's not something like someone telling you something. It's a deep sense of knowing. And I think that is something like when you know something that you absolutely know for a fact, there's a feeling of certainty in my life or your life, whatever that is. And I feel like that's what, for me, it has done. It has just peeled back the layers of myself to expose myself to what I truly am and what other people are. So, to answer that question is, I think that drugs like this are going to have a huge place in the future, and you're already probably surrounded by people that are using these drugs regularly, that are having these experiences, that are going out of their way to realize that like life is about love, life is about connection, it's about making other people better. It's you make yourself better by doing that. So for me, it's something that I know these drugs are illegal, and I'm sure you can get in trouble for even talking about it. But at the end of the day, like the opinions of this country are changing about these things, and people's ideas are changing, and that's such a positive thing in my mind. And you look back to even events like Woodstock, for example, and you start to see, well, this is kind of where things like this started. The advent of LSD in the 60s and 70s. There was a lot of fear generated around that because of the misuse and the kind of pandemonium that surrounded that. At the end of the day, in proper settings with the proper support, I find psychedelics to be one of the safest and most beneficial substances you can consume. And there's a wide variety of these that are, in my mind, spirit drugs. They are there to heal and help and expose. It's just it's very clear to me. I like talking to people about it. Most people's idea is, if you're going to go take acid, you're going to go crazy, and it's all these ideas. That's really not the case. And I've tripped dozens of times, and I find that each one has a unique message and a unique, experience behind it. And I think it's something that I would love to see more people opening up to the idea that we need to reconnect to our roots. Need to reconnect to nature.
We need to understand it more rather than like being afraid of how the because obviously it's like so many people are doing psychedelics now, and it's definitely like whether we like it or not, which I would say we do. We need to gain a greater understanding and communication around it, so that we're avoiding pitfalls and we're embracing it in the culture and really like trying to understand it and the best ways to use it for people. Kind of like not stigmatizing it so that we can't discuss it in public or
Again, fear keeps people from trying it, keeps people from talking about it. And people are always so surprised that I'm so open about talking about my experiences, and I tell them like the experience itself has told me to be open about it, to spread the message that it's okay to experience things outside of the normal three-dimensional reality in that sense. And we are spiritual beings having this experience. So this idea of like you're only connecting to yourself, another reality that's already there all the time, and your ability to perceive that reality is the magic behind these substances. It's not about taking mushrooms every weekend and going to raves. I mean, you can do that, absolutely, but at the end of the day, like there's such benefit from the proper usage of these substances, and again, applying them to people's lives in a meaningful way and to help people. And at the end of the day, I do view it as medicinal. Any of these things are medicinal.
So do you meditate?
I do, yes. I've been meditating now rather frequently for about 2 years. It's definitely one of my greatest challenges to get myself to consistently do it, which is all the more reason to do it. And I would say that meditation is what people, what you find in psychedelics in one sitting is probably what people find in meditation after years of really serious practice. And it is about quieting the analytical mind down and reconnecting to your inner self and allowing that space to be present and being aware of your thoughts and see, again, the second you sit down and be aware of the thoughts you're having, that awareness is the important part of the isolation of that. So it's the idea of meditating just makes you aware that you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings. You're having these experiences, but they are not you. So, separating the identity from that is the beauty of meditation. And I found that meditation has helped, stress levels. It's helped with, problems we've had in life. It's just generally a good thing to do. And I think that you're seeing more and more people adopting that as a spiritual practice or just even a practical thing. I know there's businesses and places that have a meditation time during the day where everybody, in a very non-denominational way is done and does it. And it doesn't have to be this like religious or spiritual thing. It can be just as easy as quieting down that conscious mind so that you can have more space to actually think and feel. So you're not being so reactive in your everyday life. You're not allowing you know, you get cut off in traffic and it just ruins your whole day. You fly off the handle and everybody sucks and I hate this and move, you know. I'm the first person, I'll have a bad day still all the time where it's just like, you know, you sit down and remind yourself that you are not this. You are just having these experiences. And anytime you want to stop having them, you choose to stop having them. And exerting that control over yourself is the magic of meditation in my mind.
And I think this sort of explains why, if you're not following a more traditional path of get the job and the marriage and the house and all of those behaviors are based on all of that idea of success in that way is based on your behavior, what you're doing.
Sure.
And so if you're a person that's operating outside of that, like having a human experience and valuing that about your life and exploring that, irregardless, I know that's not a word. People, I do know that's not a word. Regardless of the money. And you remember the Irregardless Cafe in Raleigh?
Yeah.
Okay, I blame the Irregardless Cafe in Raleigh for me using that word occasionally, even though I refused to go there because it made me so irritated that they used the wrong word. Anyway, I'm babbling. What I'm trying to say is the traditional model of success is based on behaviors and what you're doing. And if you are walking away from that traditional model of success and you're naturally interested in your experience over the doing, then that I feel like that explains the nature of the conflict and the pushback that you get from other people, because you're literally telling them, hey man, there's another way, right? And they don't want to look at your way, and you've already addressed you grew up in their way, and you're kind of walking away from it. So yeah, I hadn't really I'm just putting all that together right now in my head. So I want to just say this. I am drug phobic naturally. I will drink an occasional glass of Prosecco. I do have coffee every day. Those are drugs. But I am always nervous about doing anything that's going to get me arrested. That's just how I am. So I'm not into drugs at all, but I am into trying to understand a more egoless expression of myself. When you watch a 3-year-old look at a tree, it's much the way that Taylor's describing how he looked at that tree after his first experience. And so I do think there's value in like recreating that wonderment, getting in touch with your natural curiosity about the world around you that was really unspoiled when you were a child. Now, adults around you, if you're a 45-year-old woman watching you with your wonderment, will caution you against it, right? That's just how they are. But I'm so deeply satisfied in delving curiously into things that I really don't care what people think about me at this point. That's the beauty of being 40. You just give a fuck less every day, right?
Yeah.
But being a person who's not interested in drugs, I am intensely interested in meditation. I've been meditating for over 20 years. And I have a lot of these selfless, egoless experiences. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're a person like me who's not interested in the drugs, maybe one day we will be. But until then, like find yourself a good meditation app that's going to help you like identify your thoughts as different from your being. And I'm just going to put the link in the show notes. The one that there's two that I really like, but there's one that really speaks to this and helps you understand the anatomy of meditation, is Waking Up by Sam Harris. Yeah. And he has a free like meditation, and then you can purchase extra, but there's a lot of good materials in that free meditation app. And then also calm.com. Tamara Levitt is the one who does those meditations, and she has a lot of free material too, and a bunch of stuff you can buy. Both are worthy purchases. There's not a lot of apps I will tell you should purchase, but those two are good because I look at meditation, and probably if I did drugs, I would look at the drugs in the same way, or as we're calling them, spirit drugs.
Yeah, entheogens.
Entheogens. Yeah. I would think of that as like mental floss. Like you wouldn't dream, hopefully, you would not dream of going to bed without flossing your teeth. People, if you're not flossing your teeth, floss your teeth. Floss your damn teeth.
Thanks, Mom.
But it's the same kind of thing. It's like you've got to clean up your thoughts. You have to clean up the damage that's being done in your mind every day that you're constantly assaulted with. You're not good enough. You need to buy this thing. You know, you're never going to be what we want you to be. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, you're experiencing that. And meditation is the thing that can kind of separate it all out for you. And it's free. It's available everywhere. It takes you 10 minutes. It really doesn't take a long time. You don't need to go in an ashram. But so I'm always very curious to people who use spirit drugs. Want to hear their experiences and see how closely they're related to meditation, because I'm still a little baby about doing drugs. Maybe one day.
We all have different levels of sensitivity as well. And just like we were talking about how some people metabolize caffeine much faster than other people. I think like with regards to drugs as well, like we all have different makeups chemically. So what might be for one person might not be for another person. But I think that the really important thing is that we all take time to stop doing and experience, whether that be through meditation, whether that be through psychedelics, whatever that is. You've got to put time aside to be with the world and be with yourself rather than just do all the time.
Yeah. What do you like to do, Austin, or what do you do to undo the doing?
Well, besides, I have obviously experimented with psychedelics as well, but as far as on a daily basis, for me, I have to, I find a lot of my meditation through movement. So I definitely have to go walking or go bike riding or do something like that. I think because I just have a rambler. Yeah, and it's just maybe sitting still would be useful practice for me. I don't know, but for me, usually it's I get into a certain mind state when I'm that I feel like I need. So I do that. I definitely put aside time to get out and go bike riding or do something like that.
Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with psychedelics? Did you have a big aha moment?
Most of mine has been MDMA, and dancing, with LSD. Unfortunately, what happened with that is I wasn't prepared the first time that I took it, and it was really, really strong, and it was a little bit too much all at once, and it was a very intense experience and frightening, honestly, the first time that I used it. So I think it was too strong all at once for my very young mind. I think I was 18. So I kind of kicked back into that same feeling very quickly now, even with cannabis. I think it did something. So that I have to be very careful with that. I'm very, very, very sensitive to most psychedelics. Even just one little hit of cannabis will really, really affect me. So I'm cautiously trying to see if I can figure out how to use it, but I react strongly. MDMA somehow I'm okay with, and yeah. I know that there's a lot of other people that are like me as well with regards to, it's not relaxing for me. It's it makes my mind sped up a little bit too much where I can't. So to me, movement and MDMA is kind of a movement drug too. It kind of makes you want to move and feel very fluid in your body and your mind and your body. And it kind of gives you a goal to get to. You kind of see where you could be in your ideal state, and then you get glimpses of that in your daily life. And if you're not feeling it, then you know that you need to get back to it, if that makes any sense.
Very interesting. No, I would say that too, is I've had a extensive experience with MDMA, and there's a quote, and I'm unsure of who says the quote, but it goes, "There's nothing you can get from MDMA that you can't get in real life, but you may not get to it in this lifetime." And that's the thing, is it really brings you to this perfect version of yourself where you are not judging yourself in any way and you're unable to judge anyone else. So in that state, your perception of everyone is immaculate. Your perception of yourself is immaculate. So, this idea that it frees people from themselves, it does. You're not projecting your trauma, you're not projecting your shortcomings, and you're not making anyone else, the lens of your brain is gone in that sense. So I've had a number of, breakthrough experiences on MDMA where like it's the, the perfect sense of yourself. There's nothing you can do wrong at that state. And I think that's really beneficial for people to have that experience, because like you said, when you find that in real life, you're on the right path, and you're doing the things that are, cultivating that perfection in you. So, all these drugs have, enormous value just depending on your goals and where you're at and what you need. So I wouldn't tell anyone to not try anything, but like you said, there's such a difference between the LSD experience and MDMA. Some of the traditional tryptamine psychedelics are just so much more strange in their presentation, where, I've had friends that, had one MDMA experience and said it was the single greatest moment of their entire life.
And that may be all you need. That may be all you need is just one in your life. I mean, it was kind of like we spoke with someone, episode 13, if you ever want to go back to that, someone who had a near-death experience. And when he was talking about that, I was like, oh my God, that totally sounds like ecstasy. Like,
yes, it does. I know.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not realistic really to stay in that mind frame all the time, but to experience it and to be able to reference back to it, I think it does do something for you to be able to experience that and kind of like know that pure state and know it gives you like a compass almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And experience is what, any experience in life shapes who you are. And that's what I look at is, having these, transcendent experiences is positive, because even when I think back to some of these experiences, it almost gives you chills, because the experience was so intense and so positive that you start to see that, that's your brain holds on to that. Like anything else that makes a strong memory, it's a strong emotional connection to that singular experience. And being able to reproduce that with a substance is valuable to society, I'd say. And again, sure, you can abuse it, use it too much, misuse it, of course. We've seen that all over. But, like I said, in the right settings with the right intentions, I feel like there's such value to be had from these more pure, conscious experiences. So.
And as with anything, it is, you can't expect to you have to accept with that you're not going to be feeling that way all the time. You have to accept that, because if you don't, then you run the risk of falling into addiction, because you're just chasing that all the time, and that's not something you can do. So you have to go in mindfully and realize that you're not gonna feel that way all the time, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay, and that's life. That's what we're not here to have. These godlike experiences all the time, but once in a while to remind yourself of what you really are and what's important in life. I think it's a great adjustment, just like you would go to a chiropractor or something, or something where you need just maintenance periodically. I view it as like the oil change in my life, every couple months or something. It helps, and it does provide me with a new perspective on what I'm doing and the value of myself and where I'm at. So again, it's a sometimes uncomfortable mirror for some people, but if your heart and mind are in the right spot, it can be a very, very positive experience overall. So, yeah. Got my thoughts on all that stuff.
So I think that our friend Taylor needs a podcast.
Oh yeah.
I would like to do a podcast. I feel like this is I like the long format conversation with people. I think there's a lot of things people get from listening to this form. And again, I look at it as the podcast versus the daytime television interview or something. Like, we'll be right back after these messages. Like, that whole thing is so disingenuous to me. This idea of just having a conversation that people can be a fly on the wall and just listen to the conversation, you get more out of it. And I think people are more genuine and honest when it comes down to like not having this like, all right, you need to talk about this and you can't say this, and here you got to plug this thing for this ad after. Right. Like, we have this society that is just pre-packaged and put out for consumption, and we're seeing people want real. People want, they want to hear what you're actually all about. Like, when I get excited when people, say something that's like serious in their life, and then not this like, oh, I'm just telling you this because I want this to be what you hear. So podcasting to me is beautiful because it is an opportunity to really flesh out ideas and have conversations about meaningful things where like people might not, get exposed to that, or they might not be aware of certain things. And I've learned so much over just, having an iPhone and having the podcast app over the last, 10 years or whatever it's been. So I love podcasting. I think it's hugely beneficial. It's just been something for me. It's difficult to know how to get into something or how to just start. I'm somebody that I have what I would consider to be a lot of ideas, but my biggest problem is just starting something and just saying, hey, this is day one. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, it may not be perfect right out of the gate, but it's something that, I view as positive. And even just doing this is my first podcast experience. It was like a big deal for me because I view this could be the thing I want to pursue in the future. And honestly, talking is something that like is enjoyable. And I think the average conversation you have with people is not as valued as it should be. And, you get more out of people when you are just being honest and having just an open-ended conversation where there's no expectation and there's no limitation on people. It's good.
Well, the technology that we have on us right now changes things. So because right now we have in our pocket something that is capable of, if you know how to use it right, it's more technology than they had making the sitcoms of the 80s. Like Absolutely. Right here in our pocket. So like each person has so much creative potential, and I see it flourishing, but I'm surprised it's not even more. And I think it will be. I think it will be, like, as we go on, like cutting out the content producers that are, kind of like the censoring the network kind of establishment is just going to become less and less over as we keep evolving with this and people learn how to do it. And as soon as I learned about podcasts, I was like, that's so exciting that now anybody can have a radio show. And that's just cool. And you've got the potential for that right in your pocket.
Yeah, it's something too, is, there's so much more, like you see people latching on to stuff like this and ditching the morning news and ditching all this prepackaged bullshit that doesn't do anything for anybody, because everybody knows it's not real. And it's this idea that like we're currently living in a culture that is breaking down around us because of these things, because we're not valuing people and their ideas and reality. We're valuing profits and fake shit and the stuff you see on reality TV. Like there's just this stark contrast in my mind to like where we've been in the last 20 years, and now people are just like, this isn't working, this isn't what I want. Like there is a hunger out there, I think, for more of this type of thing, and it's great to be a part of it, and it's great to see it happen. And I myself view me listening to certain things and me buying certain things as like, that's my vote in that sense, and that's me valuing that and looking at that as like, I want more of this and less than that. And I think that's not even like this fringe thing anymore. That's like more people than not are like, I even think my mom started listening to podcasts and stuff.
What?
Yeah, we'll talk about like Joe Rogan podcasts, whatever we listen to.
She listens to Joe Rogan?
Yeah, and I think that's, honestly, like that was the podcast for me that really started it, because it talked a lot about stuff that I'm into, conspiracy theories and science and all this other stuff that didn't really get a voice a lot of times, where it just takes somebody saying, okay, I'm going to have you on and we'll talk about this. And then a million people are interested in that. All of a sudden, you see these waves of interest pop up. And people now more than ever are, they're just excited that there's an alternative voice out there that's actually being heard. And it's not this fringe thing that, everyone's tinfoil hat. It's, people can see that something's wrong in society. People can see, especially in America, that there is a lot of unrest right now, and it's it's a reflection of us being unhappy with things and not wanting to continue on in the fashion we're continuing on. And this is a part of that, I think, is talking about this, having these conversations and putting this out there for people just to maybe one day take a chance and press play and go, wow, I really resonated with what that guy was talking about, or I really resonate with what this whole podcast is about. And that's, again, it's making meaningful connections with people. It's making sure that, it's not always waiting for somebody else to do it. It's you doing it. It's you being that light, you being that resonant pattern that other people can connect with. And that's, the best thing you can do, I think. So
I feel like you could do like a daily bartender digest.
Yeah. It's some of the conversations I have with the Rail, at a bar, like you would love to have had a recorder out, because that's where you get some of the realest, most genuine stuff, is when, there's nothing recording and there's no expectation. So, it is great to, see this for what it is and kind of, try to cultivate that natural flow of things. And, conversations are great, especially long long format ones that just you get a lot out of. You can see what people are about. And I feel like with podcasts too is, it's a little bit of like, you feel like you know somebody a little bit better after this. Versus like a flat out interview is so much more, methodical and just prepackaged. And, if somebody's reading off a teleprompter, you're like, this isn't you. Like, I want to see what you would say. Like, what do you think about this? Not what they think or not what they want you to say. Like, nobody cares about that.
You know who does that really well right now, even though she's part of popular culture, is Cardi B. I love interviews with Cardi B. Have you seen any?
I've seen a few, yeah.
She just interviewed Bernie Sanders. She's sort of a rap artist. I think you can call her rap. Yeah, hip hop rap. And she's just got this amazing voice. Her conversation is just, it's just delightful. I can't quite nail what her accent is. So you're just intensely interested in the words as they're coming out, like you would be listening to someone who speaks English but with a British accent or Australian accent. Like, you just got to tune in a little bit harder just to hear what she's saying. But she does not give a fuck what people think about her, and she just speaks off the cuff, and that's why everyone loves her. Exactly. I mean, her music's great too, but she sat down with Bernie Sanders, did an interview with him, and she asked him like just the blunt questions that everybody wants to know. So if you can, I'll put a link to that too, the Cardi B Bernie thing. But anyway, we hunger for that, and when it does emerge, even in popular culture, like, we want it so bad. Yeah. So I think you're right about that. We do want we want reality. We want the zits and the bumps and the ums and the ahs. I mean, some people ask me, do we edit this podcast? And I'm like, first of all, I'm too lazy to do that. And secondly, I just don't want to do that. I want you to hear my struggle in what I'm trying to say, because I feel like people can relate to that. If you're perfect, if you're polished, no one can really relate to it, and it just seems like something that's impossible, right? It just makes you feel less when you're around somebody who's so polished.
Some of my favorite podcasts are ones where they get totally derailed and just fall off the face of the, something happens where it's just unexpected, and then that's the beauty of it, is like nobody planned this. The script for this is literally like, you brought up something intense and I had an answer for it, and that's where we're at. And I think you get more real stuff out of podcasting, and because you don't edit it, and you're not sitting there going, well, this is a good spot for a commercial, and we need to cut this out where he talks about this.
We can't talk about this because it's not going to sell this or that product, and we need to get that pitch in. Yeah.
And I think your ear listens for those moments. Like, I know if I'm listening to a podcast, something goes a little bit wrong, I'm like, oh, I'm listening, really listening.
People, for some reason, or even, go on YouTube and find where newscasters have thought the camera was off and then they started swearing, or did something. I love those types of things, because you see real people, screwing up in these prepackaged situations where it's just like, these are actual people that have normal lives that would have a conversation if you bumped into them at a bar. But for some reason, society in the past has valued this, well, tonight on the news, this whole just weird thing. And it's like, you don't really talk like that. Why are you doing this? Why are you dressing like you're in the middle of the 80s? Like, all this stuff it doesn't, when I watch when I have watched the nightly local news and stuff like that, there's such a level of just drop this whole thing. We just tell us the reality of stuff, but don't make it seem like it's this polished
weird beauty pageant situation. Yeah.
And that may even be what's going on with Trump right now, is that he's figured out a way to tap into that feeling, but not necessarily. I mean, whatever other people feel they're listening to this, in my opinion, tapped into it for the worst. And uses that feeling of unsettlement that we all have, and kind of acknowledges it. And I think other people are going to have to do that as well, in order to reach out to people. They're going to have to cut the crap.
We need Cardi B to run for president.
Yeah,
we need somebody that's doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
I think that's too. Trump did speak to people in a way where he wasn't a normal politician. I think that's the only thing positive that really got him him in there was this idea that it might be 4 years of different stuff. It wasn't 4 years of different good stuff. It was different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that idea of people are tired of politicians. People are tired of lobbyists. They're tired of disingenuous bullshit that continues to perpetuate this really greedy paradigm that we live in, where a small group of people hold all the wealth and all the power and make all the rules. And that's not a reflection of what people want. So, I mean, I think he got in because people thought that this not average guy, but this very, unpolished, uncouth individual that says all these ridiculous things could possibly be the leader of the free world. And it's, we're kind of seeing the folly of that, I think. And I mean, people have their opinions on Trump either way, but I think the average person can see that he's probably not the best politician we've had in the White House. I mean, that's just an objective thing. But, he does seem more like a flawed average person than almost every other president we've had in there. I just look at the stark contrast between, what a statesman and collected individual Obama was, and how, he still was such a president in that sense, regardless of what he did or his policies. And then you shift to Trump, and Trump is just this, this angry 14-year-old tweeting from his bed eating McDonald's. And it's just this preposterous thing that you're like, how did this happen? But at the same time, that is kind of like people being so tired of the political system and so tired of politicians. This is your result. This is the individual that they got in there. So, again, I don't agree with Trump, and I don't agree with his policies, and I don't think he's the best president we could have, but he does reflect a desire for political change, and I think the whole system needs to change. I think it's something that, it's obviously broken. We're living proof right now that this system doesn't work. Bipartisan politics doesn't work. Like, it's, so whether or not he's good, bad, or indifferent, he's done an effective job at destabilizing the entire operation. And I think, at the end of the day, I look at that as the positive takeaway from his presidency, is the idea that, we are exposing the cracks in this system, that it is absurd, that it is broken, that there is nothing left to really salvage from it, in my mind, I guess. Again, this is my opinion, but, when I look around and I talk to other people about politics, it's rarely, people viewing it in the lens they viewed it during the Obama administration, during the Bush years and the Clinton years, any of these things. Like, we're living through a different time right now. And ideas are changing. And, I look at this next election as probably a potential tipping point for this country, because, it's either going to be 4 more years of that or something new, and it's kind of this idea of, this is like, somebody trying to wake you up from sleep. How hard do they got to shake you before you wake up? And I think that's the collective periphery of the United States right now, is there's a lot of people that are asleep in that sense. And enough weird shit is starting to happen that people are going, okay, something's different here. We got to stop and re-examine this.
Yeah.
It's insane. And that's what it is, absurdity is kind of this compass for us right now, where how much crazier can it get before it just breaks down around us? That's, and that's what I see.
We just have to hope somebody, we just have to be on guard against someone exploiting the fear that's around that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Which is exactly what Trump did.
Yeah.
He just he took basic fears, especially about immigration, and women, and then just turned the volume up on it. And you're like, I wish that our country had been turned to that, crazy Uncle Jimmy and been like, just shut up. Right.
And he gave crazy Uncle Jimmy a voice. And that's
he did.
The problem is giving these really, extreme ends
and power.
Power is not great, because I see it as the average person is not a white supremacist. The average person is not some sort of, individual that we would consider, to be this, what we're experiencing right now. But it's this idea of he, almost just, found these people and said, hey, vote me in and I'll be your voice. I'll toe your line.
Mm-hmm.
And, we kind of forget these people existed, and they're hanging out in rural America, and they're conservative and they're unaware of what's actually happening, but he got through to them somehow. And, I look at this as something that, this needs to be a wake-up call to everybody, that this is possible, and that, again, people can be manipulated very easily. And if you're the loudest, most charismatic yeller out there, and you say the right things to the right crowd, that crowd's going to react to that, and for some reason put you in the White House. And that's what I see is, I didn't think that it was possible that there was this many people that still felt this way about certain things. But, our current state of being is a reflection of that right now. So, we have a lot of issues to work out as a country and society in general, but I think the visibility of these issues is becoming more clear to people right now.
Mm-hmm.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Well, listen, I want to hear from you. Like, what your favorite 3 coffee houses are?
Right now, my number one is Otis.
Otis.
That's like my home turf right now. Other than that, Ampersand in Gun Barrel, another amazing coffee shop. They have great coffee, great staff there, located right across the street pretty much from the brewery I work at. But I get their coffee a lot just to take home. They got great beans, great roaster. And then I know it's a little more generic, but I bartended in Fargo, North Dakota for a long time, and there was a little Caribou coffee shop in a grocery store that I frequented almost every day for probably 3 or 4 years. So I got to shout out to them and say, hey, that's one of my favorite spots. Yeah. Of happy hour coffee there. So those are my big 3. Those are where I've had probably the most cups of coffee.
That's where you're drinking the memories.
Yeah. Exactly. When I think of my favorite coffee shops, those are the ones that come to mind. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, we got to wrap this up because our earbuds are losing power. We just got the AirPods. So they're going to time us out soon. But as we end this episode, I want to again thank our guest, Taylor Dobmeyer, for being with us today. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. We want to hear from you guys. So if you know a barista or coffee industry person we need to have featured on this show, just hit us up at info@baristaunfiltered.com. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and we're getting close to that subscriber goal on YouTube. So y'all keep hitting the subscribe button. We're not going to bug you, but it really does help us because eventually we can get like a personalized YouTube title if we keep up with that. Anyhow, we also need your reviews on iTunes. That helps us get noticed by people outside our circle of influence. So if you have time for just write up a couple sentences, we would love that. We've got podcast patrons to thank. And if you want to patronize the podcast, go over to patreon.com/baristaunfiltered. Donations can be made in any amount or in any kind of schedule, whatever fits your budget. We just appreciate your support. And I'll wrap this up. I'm Jody Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
Y'all be good and stay caffeinated, friends. Bye.